Hello, I'm Lara Kulchersan and this is Newsfeed, your dose of what people are talking about online. DeepSeek is shaking up the AI world. The Chinese startup's latest AI model reportedly outperforms top US models at a fraction of the cost. Not only is it free, but it's also open source. That sent shockwaves through Wall Street this week. US tech stocks tanked as investors worried about what DeepSeek's rise could mean. Now, OpenAI and Microsoft are hitting back, accusing DeepSeek of not building its AI from scratch. Microsoft, which has poured billions into OpenAI, claims to have evidence of distillation from the Chinese company to lift data from OpenAI to train its model.
To build language models, you take a series of prompts and ideal responses and train the model on emulating those types of responses. Once a model is built, you can then fine-tune it by providing further examples of prompts and ideal responses. But large language models are very expensive to build and use, so AI companies also build small language models. These models are built by sending prompts to the large language model, capturing the completions, and then use the data from the large language model to train a smaller language model. In fact, OpenAI has their own tools to do it. But because of how this works, a company can't control whether someone is distilling a new model from theirs, which is why OpenAI has a clause in their terms of service saying you can't do this. Now we're getting a test of that clause, because while OpenAI and Microsoft can show that someone was using their API, they can't show what was done inside the API, and they can't show how the data was used afterwards. And unless they've done some sort of fancy fingerprinting no one knows about, they can't show that a specific input into one model matches the output of another model, and that makes proof of distilling. Bottom line is, distilling is something everyone is doing, and whatever happens next will determine the immediate future of AI development.
What it's almost saying is that DeepSeek doesn't really know how to learn like OpenAI does. So, OpenAI uses lots of energy because it's out, looking at the internet, looking at the web, looking at images, videos, continually learning. But this kind of says that DeepSeek doesn't know how to learn. It just kind of asks questions to OpenAI to figure out how to respond.
And here's where it gets interesting. OpenAI itself has faced similar accusations. For years, the company has been criticized for training its models on content scraped from across the internet, often without creators' permission. So naturally, the internet has had a field day with the irony of it all. Just days ago, US President Donald Trump had welcomed DeepSeek's launch, calling it a wake-up call for Silicon Valley and a positive step in the AI race. But now, security concerns are mounting. The US Navy has reportedly banned its members from using DeepSeek's app, citing potential security and ethical risks. And the White House is looking into whether it poses a national security threat. Meanwhile, on social media, many are raising concerns about the app's terms and conditions, warning users to read the fine print.
If you're planning on downloading the Chinese AI app DeepSeek, please read the terms and conditions first. DeepSeek retains user data even after an account is deleted. The app explicitly states it has the right to monitor user input and outputs, which include sensitive and strategic information. It has the right to process all user data, update the terms and conditions without consent. The app is governed by Chinese law, which means if the Chinese government wants access to the data, that is mandatory.
Meta has reached a deal to pay $25 million to US President Donald Trump. This follows the suspension of his Facebook and Instagram accounts after the January 6th Capitol Hill riots. Of that $25 million, 22 is going to Trump's presidential library, and the remaining 3 will cover his legal fees. According to the lawsuit, Trump argued that Meta violated his rights and even claimed that the company worked with Democratic lawmakers to silence him. As part of the agreement, the tech giant doesn't have to admit any wrongdoing in response to those claims of censorship. This settlement comes on the heels of some big changes at Meta, such as ending diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, as well as fact-checking processes in order to align with Trump's policies.
this got America very divided because people thought it was unconstitutional to silence a still sitting and about to be former president over a political back and forth with another party, right? People didn't like the kind of rhetoric he was saying, and they thought that they could actually delete his account, which was completely inexcusable. And now, years later, as Donald Trump takes power in office again, right, he's starting to definitely circle back to anybody, right, that might have tried to do something. Now, Donald Trump is circling back now, years later, against any corporation or company that weaponized against him at all during this time. Now, we saw X, once it got bought by Elon Musk, they restored Donald Trump's account immediately. We're seeing Donald Trump on TikTok now. So this was like one of the last things he had to do.
In the final days of 2024, a surge in aviation incidents raised concerns about global air safety. Over 300 people were killed, with South Korea's Jeju Air suffering the highest death toll. In 2025, South Korea is back in the spotlight for another aviation accident. An Air Busan Airbus caught fire before takeoff on Tuesday night. Fortunately, all passengers were safe. Then, on Wednesday, a mid-air collision occurred over Washington, D.C.'s main airport. An American Airlines jet carrying 64 people and an Army helicopter with 4 crew members collided mid-air. Dive teams have recovered most of the bodies from the Potomac River. There were no survivors. Investigators have also recovered the jet's flight recorders, which could provide clues about the cause of the crash. Following the first national tragedy of his second term, President Trump jumped right into the blame game. He pointed the finger at the Biden administration while also blaming diversity in the ranks of aviation workers.
The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent.
A lot of politicians and influencers are jumping the gun when it comes to what happened in DC this morning, so we're going to come to the most logical conclusion with the information that we currently have. So as you guys saw in that first clip, the first thing that Trump did was attack DEI after the plane crash, insinuating that Joe Biden lowering the standards for air traffic controllers is why we saw that crash. Now again, we're coming to logical conclusions, so if we were to run with that opinion, we would need one of two things to be true. First, we would need to know if that controller was unqualified and was a diversity hire, which we don't know yet. Now, the second thing we need to know in order to corroborate Trump's claim is what mistake was made and how that exactly correlates with the merit of the employee that made the mistake. Now, what people are starting to find out is that the controller handling the helicopters at the Reagan Airport was also talking to planes landing and departing, and that job is typically done by 2 people. So what we have to ask ourselves when trying to blame this on DEI is the employee unqualified? Is that actually what happened? Or is the employee overworked?
The world's most mysterious woman is making headlines once again. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that the Mona Lisa will be moved to a new exhibition space at the Louvre Museum in Paris.
The announcement came because of a memo that was leaked. The director of the Louvre sent out a memo saying that visiting the museum was a physical ordeal. Some of the spaces in the museum were in poor condition. This is apparently a wall in one of the galleries. This memo was leaked to the press, and a week later the president announced these renovations. So first, the Mona Lisa will have its own new space, its own entrance, and its own ticket. She will be officially moved by 2031. The museum was designed to welcome 4 million people a year. Last year, it welcomed 8.7 million. And when renovations are complete, they can safely welcome 12 million a year. In addition to the new space for the Mona Lisa, there will also be new underground exhibition spaces. Now, a big chunk of these renovations will be financed by ticket sales, especially from tourists that are non-EU residents. And we will see an increase in these ticket prices by 2026.
Meanwhile, an Italian official has called on the Louvre to temporarily return the masterpiece during renovations. Lombardy's regional culture assessor, Francesca Caruso, posted on social media saying, "We are ready to welcome the Mona Lisa." Though Renaissance master Leonardo da Vinci was not from Milan, he spent 17 years there. The city is also home to Da Vinci's The Last Supper. If you're a parent, does the amount of time your teenager spends on their phone bother you? If yes, you're not alone. Most parents are concerned about the impact social media has on the young ones. But have you really thought about how their screen time affects their eating habits? A study from PubMed shows there's actually a link between screen time and social media and the chances of developing an eating disorder. And it doesn't stop there. Teens who spend more time online are also at a higher risk of dealing with cyberbullying, which is another factor that can contribute to eating disorders. So what does all this mean? Well, the connection between social media and eating disorders is complex. And when it comes to protecting your kids, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. But being aware of these risks is a great first step.
You might have heard about how extreme diet and exercise content, sometimes specifically targeted at kids under 13, is exploding on TikTok. We wanted to know what kids might be exposed to, so we created an account for a 14-year-old interested in healthy eating and exercise to see what she might be served on TikTok. And it's this. This type of content can easily dominate kids' feeds, meaning they can be exposed to it for hours every single day. We're talking tips for how to eat under 800 calories, dangerous messages about body image, extreme exercise routines, how to lose weight as an 11-year-old, even tips for how to do all of this and hide it from your family. Experts agree this can trigger and worsen eating disorders in kids.
But who can avoid the odd sweet? And did you know that sweets are a serious matter when it comes to international competitions? When you think of Japan, you might imagine jiggly cheesecakes or fluffy pancakes, but not this time. This time, they took it to another level, as expected. The Japanese team defeated the French in Lyon and won the Pastry World Cup with the best once-in-a-lifetime dessert. Japan's winning creations drew on a range of traditional elements. These included the kiyomi orange, rice-based wafers, and a recurring dragonfly theme. Who knew insects could be so stylishly delicious? But cheer up, mesdames et messieurs. France has won the international Bocuse d'Or cooking competition, aka the Culinary Olympics. With this victory, the country has reclaimed some Gallic pride as home to the world's best haute cuisine chefs. In the last competition, held in 2023, France did not even place in the top 3. Oh la la! That's our show all wrapped up. Find our latest stuff on YouTube and do subscribe to our channel. See you soon!